This is Christopher John Björknes. It is March 1st, 2025. There's a lot going on in the world. Donald Trump wants to build a Riviera in Gaza on the corpses of Palestinian babies. And he also wants to end the war in Ukraine. And he is really desperate, really anxious. He really wants to hurry up and give over southeastern Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. And southeastern Ukraine just so happens to be Heavenly Jerusalem, the project that Igor Berkut proposed. And he is a Putinist, and he wants to give over that territory to Russia, which is now happening, and Trump's pushing real hard about it. He almost has a sexual frustration about it. He was hopping mad and jumping up and down and screaming at Zelensky to get this done. And one of the reasons why is because they want to utilize Ukrainian women as sex slaves. They have been running a meat grinder in Ukraine to kill off all the fighting age men. And it's getting harder and harder to find fighting age men in Ukraine. They've been so successful at it. What happens when you kill off the fighting age males? Their wives are left without providers. Their daughters are left without providers. Their girlfriends are freed up, but there are no other men to find. So all of these Ukrainian women can be harvested as sex slaves in the white slave trade that has been going on through Crimea, which Putin now controls, and through Ukraine, especially southern Ukraine, which Putin now controls for thousands of years. And guess who it is who has consistently run that slave trade for thousands of years? It has been Jews. So what they are setting up is they are freeing up all the beautiful women of Ukraine to become sex slaves in Israel. Israel is part of the Belt and Road Initiative for China, which used to be the Silk Road. And Jews for many hundreds of years, probably thousands of years, have been running slaves from Crimea, from Europe, through the Silk Road over to China, throughout the Middle East. And they do it very much so in brothels in Israel, which the ultra-Orthodox and the rabbis love to frequent, and they especially like Ukrainian women. So Trump wants to build this Riviera and get all the Middle Eastern countries involved in it. It'll probably have the most brothels per capita in the world. They can use that for their pedophile sex rings, for their entrapment and blackmail and extortion operations. They can get all the rich from around the world to go there, and they can film them in perverse sex acts. And they're going to have a good stock of women if they can get this war wound up in Ukraine and harvest all those females, get Poland to kick out all the women who have fled this meat grinder in Ukraine, get them back out of Germany and England, and don't send them to Ukraine. They're going to run a slave trade, and this slave trade is going to grow as they continue to war against Europe and enslave white Europeans around the world. And they're setting all this up, and this is going to start in Ukraine, in southern Ukraine, in heavenly Jerusalem, once they get this war tightened up. And it's very interesting that Donald Trump is utilizing the pretext of rare earth minerals for wanting to end this war and claim half the profits or half the resources of Ukraine and hand over a good chunk of Ukraine to Putin, this specific chunk, which has all the rare earth minerals. So he would actually get nothing by handing that over to Putin. So that's obviously not the reason why he's doing it. And he had a little slip of the tongue, and he calls them raw earth instead of rare earth. And I doubt it, but it could be that he is referring to clay, as in Adam, as in human flesh. He wants that raw earth, the human flesh of Ukraine, to stock his brothels and his whorehouses that he's going to build in the Gaza Strip, and that are going to be utilized like the Epstein pedophile sex ring to blackmail politicians and be able to extort them and control them. And I'm going to show you all the history of this, as I and many others have been pointing out for decades and thousands of years. The Jews in the Talmud say that in the world to come, which they are about to start now after the 6 days, 6,000 years of creation are over, each Jew will be privileged to have 2,800 Gentile slaves. And I'm going to read you the text on that, Shabbat 32b. I'm going to show you this continuing history of Israel capturing Ukrainian women as white slaves and bringing them to Israel, how this has been going on for thousands of years with Jews and Muslims, but especially Jews, just as the Jews were the principal agents of the African slave trade, and Jews all throughout history per capita have been the principal owners of slaves. Jews own more slaves in the South per capita by far than white people or Indians or anyone else. They were the predominant slave owners. They were the predominant slave merchants, and they ran the shipping and the slave trade out of Africa. They were also pirates at that time who would capture slaves. The Barbary pirates were actually Jewish pirates. So let's get into this heavenly Jerusalem that was proposed by Igor Berkut. I've done a couple videos on this. I'm going to show you many other people have covered this. The only unique spin that I really had on it was this idea of Shekinah and the religious aspects of it that other people weren't aware of, that I revealed. And this is southeastern Ukraine, and it abuts against Crimea. Crimea has been the hub of the slave trade out of Europe for a very long time, especially with Muslims and Jews. This was the region of Khazaria with the Turkic Khazars who converted to Judaism sometime between 600 and 850, and their royalty especially were Jewish. And Jews have been pushing the idea for a very long time that their convert population, especially the Ashkenazim, derive in part or very substantially from these converted Khazar Jews of Europe. So let's start digging in to this history of the slave trade in modern Israel, which is part of an ongoing slave trade the Jews have been running for thousands of years. In Leviticus, they're entitled to take slaves. It says that Gentiles are going to grab hold of the skirts of the Jews, and that's going to entitle them to 2,800 Jews in the world to come, 2,800 slaves in the world to come. They want sex slaves. They've got sex slaves now. They're going to convert Gaza into one of their brothel paradises, again, also as a honey trap for the rich people around the world to control their populations. And they want to get this going, damn it, they want it done now. And that's one of the reasons why Trump is so anxious. There are many other reasons, very important reasons, that I'll be touching upon soon. So like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that. I want to thank all the people who have been contributing. You can contribute at my website, CJBBooks.com. You'll also find my books there. And I thank you, all of you wonderful people who have been contributing to keep me going. I need that continually, and I'm tremendously appreciative of it. So here is, there are many documentaries to be found on this on YouTube. They've been done over the years. They're continually getting scrubbed off the web, but you can find them if you look for them. sex slave industry, also in New York City when the Jews were brought over in the 1800s through the 1920s from Eastern Europe under the pretext that they were suffering under pogroms. They ran all the prostitution houses. Most of the prostitutes were Jewish women. And this is from this documentary.
Most of these women come from the former Soviet Union, and human rights groups estimate that there are up to 7,000 sex slaves still in Israel. Despite being given greater powers of search and arrest, the Israeli police believe the crime gangs are winning the battle.
What we are doing here now in the police, we're making them that we're catching those girls and sending them back. It's hurt them, but I believe that they will never stop because it's a lot of money. It's like drugs. It's and even more than drugs.
Even more than drugs. So if you look around on the web, you'll find all kinds of information about this. Perpetrators from Zaporizhia exported Ukrainian women into sexual slavery in Israel. There is absolutely nothing new about this. Hasidic pilgrims and Ukrainian sex workers, prayer and pleasure in Uman. If you look around, you're going to see those Hasidic Jews with the curlies, snakes hanging off their head, visiting these brothels, raping these women repeatedly in these hellish whorehouses that are all over Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. And that's what they're going to do with Gaza. And that's one of the reasons that they want to wind this war up in Ukraine so that they can start harvesting all these females after they ground up all the males in the meat grinder and kill them off. These women are going to be desperate. The young women are going to be desperate. And they're very good. They know how to lure these people in and trap them and take advantage of them and enslave them. They have all the networks to bring them to Israel. They have the networks through Turkey, as in the old Ottoman Empire, to ship them through Saudi Arabia, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, et cetera, et cetera. It's all set up, and they're going to get it going soon. Trump, in case you missed it, had this really bizarre video that he posted on his Truth Social account showing all these lurid and perverse images, which could be sympathetic magic to get all this rolling. He even had hermaphrodites or transvestite men with beards and bikinis with breasts in this. It's really outrageous and sickening, but it foreshadows what is to come, deliberately so.
Donald's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is fighting.
Look at that. Isn't that really weird? Dark beard, bikinis, breasts with beards. This is all perverse and really sick. And it's being built on the children of Gaza being killed off.
Bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright. Golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza.
Look at that. That could be a brothel.
And dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza, shining bright. Golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
These images of gold, as I was the first one to point out, relate to the idea of the Saturn worship of the Romans, which was referred to as the Golden Age. It was an age of wealth and extravagance. And so Trump is portraying himself as the god Saturn, and he has called for this Saturnal golden age in which he's going to bring wealth to the wealthy, and he's going to make Gaza one of the hubs at which a Riviera at which they're going to vacation and have whoring vacations as people do in Thailand. And it'll be a place where the Mossad can film all of it and capture all of it. And they're going to utilize women from Ukraine, from Eastern Europe. And eventually they're going to kick up this slave trade as they start exterminating the white European peoples and enslave them in their own countries. They're going to start shipping white Europeans through Crimea out to all the world through this Chinese Belt and Road, which mimics the Silk Road as they've been doing for thousands of years. And it's going to be very horrific for white people. It already is, and it's getting worse. And this is where we're headed. We're also headed towards nuclear war. They want to do everything they can. They have all kinds of backup plans, all kinds of alternative plans. And it's all based on what they've historically been doing for thousands of years. Let's just finish this up.
Future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
Netanyahu and Trump are both Chabadniks, as is Putin, as is Malayi, as is RFK Jr. This is the Talmud reference I was referring to that I've been talking about for decades. In the Babylonian Talmud, in the tractate Shabbat, folio 32b, it famously states, since the Gemara discussed the importance of the mitzvah, the commandment of ritual fringes, it cites that which Reish Lakish said, anyone who is vigilant in performing the mitzvah of ritual fringes merits that 2,800 servants, it's actually slaves, will serve him in the world to come. I have a book on that, Beware of the World to Come. You can find it at my website, CJBBooks.com. As it is stated, thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days, in the days of the world to come, the Jewish utopia, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations, shall even take hold of the corner of the garment of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23. On each corner of a Jewish person's garment with ritual fringes, 10 people from each of the 70 nations will take hold. That totals 700 people. On each corner, 2,800 people altogether. They're talking about the prayer shawl with the fringes on the corners that they wear around their neck and underneath their shirts and coats. And I'll give you the Soncino, very authoritative translation. Resh Lakish said, he who is observant of fringes will be privileged to be served by 2,800 slaves. For it is said, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations, shall even take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, etc. So this is a plan that's been very long in the making. Again, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, even in Genesis, Esau is slated to be the slave of Jacob. That's his blessing from his father Isaac. And there's all kinds of subsequent literature in the Qumran, the Midrash, the Talmud, and in Kabbalah about how the Gentiles will be slaves and will be exterminated, completely blotted out, cease to exist. So this slave trade out of the Black Sea, Crimea sits on the Black Sea, the southern coast of Ukraine is on the Black Sea. Turkey has a great deal of control over it, from access to it from the Mediterranean through the Bosphorus. The Black Sea slave trade trafficked people, and the Dardanelles. That's what I was thinking of. That's why I tripped on my words. The Black Sea slave trade trafficked people across the Black Sea from Eastern Europe and the Caucasus to slavery in the Mediterranean and Middle East. The Black Sea slave trade, this is a slave trade of white Europeans, primarily Eastern white Europeans. The Black Sea slave trade was the center of the slave trade between Europe and the rest of the world from antiquity until the 19th century. It's still going on, as I proved with Israel. One of the major and most significant slave trades of the Black Sea region was the trade of the Crimean Khanate, known as the Crimean slave trade. The Crimean Khanate has roots going all the way back to those Turk Khazars who converted to Judaism. The Ottoman slave traders were often Jews, Greeks, or Armenian Ottomans, and it was primarily and overwhelmingly Jews. Crimean Nogai slave raids in Eastern Europe. Isn't this a rich, wonderful history and legacy of Islam and Judaism? Crimean Nogai slave raids in Eastern Europe were the slave raids for over 3 centuries, and we're talking millions of people here, conducted by the military of the Crimean Khanate and the Nogai horde, primarily in lands controlled by Russia and Poland, Lithuania. See how little things change and how they do these same things over and over and over again until they'll finally exterminate us if their plans succeed, as well as other territories, often under the sponsorship of the Ottoman Empire, which was controlled by Turks, which provided slaves for the Crimean and Ottoman slave trades. The slave dealers were Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, and Jews, and both the Crimean Khan and the Turkish Pasha taxed them in exchange for that right, and we're talking millions of people. Muslims, Armenians, Jews, and Greek traders all purchased Slavic slaves in Kaffa. There was a huge trade in European white slaves, primarily white females. Those are the preferred sex slaves throughout the world. White people are considered the most beautiful people on earth. And they really want to ramp it up and get it going, and they want to put us all through hell. They want to humiliate our people. They want to change our DNA so that we no longer exist. It's not that they want to, they're doing it. They've been doing it for thousands of years. And your saviors, Trump and Putin, are a huge part in all of this. And they are connected, not only through his KGB affiliations, allegedly as Agent Krasnov, but much more importantly through their Chabad Lubavitch affiliations, through their Rothschild affiliations, through the types like Wilbur Ross, etc., through the Jewish oligarchs. It's a myth that Putin kicked out the Jewish oligarchs. He consolidated the power of the Jewish oligarchs behind Chabad through Roman Abramovich and Lev Leviev and the Rotenbergs, and I've gone through it 100 times, and people still lie and say he got rid of the Russian oligarchs when he made them even more powerful and more wealthy. He got rid of Khodorkovsky because Khodorkovsky was going to expose his corruption, because Khodorkovsky wanted to do business in the EU, and in order to do business in the EU, they had to get rid of some of their corruption or they wouldn't be allowed. He got rid of Berezovsky, who was a Christian Jew, because he wanted to consolidate power behind Roman Abramovich. He got rid of Gozinski, and didn't even really get rid of him, just defrocked him a little bit. So he was no longer in charge of the World Jewish Congress in Russia, so that Chabad Lubavitch could take over, and so that Berel Lazar, his rabbi, known as Putin's rabbi, I kid you not, could become the chief rabbi of Russia. So he by no means got rid of the Jewish oligarchs. He made them even more powerful and wealthy and consolidated all their power. And this Jewish exploitation of white women and white people as slaves being shipped out of Europe to the Middle East, to Israel for sure, and all the Arabian and Persian countries, to India and China, is an ancient practice. Jewish merchants bought slaves at the market in Prague for sale to the Spanish. All the Sakaliba eunuchs in the world came from Andalusia. They were castrated near this country. The operation is performed by Jewish merchants. Ibn Khordadbeh, I'm going to try that again. Ibn Khordadbeh records a wider network, this is over 1,000 years ago, extending from Western Europe through to Africa, Arabia, India, and China, run by Jewish merchants whom he refers to as Radhanites. And it was these Radhanites Jews they set up, and they have descendants still in China, as far away as China. China was a destination for Radhanite Jews. Look at this network, this huge network that these Jews ran, who brought boys, female slaves from Europe to sell to any local, according to the Book of Roads and Kingdoms by Ibn Khordadbeh. That makes it a little easier for me. At Dandan Oilik, an 8th century document written in Judeo-Persian was found and translated by Oral Stein. I've done a video on this heavenly Ukraine and my insights into how it relates to Shekinah, and that was back before I got the hedge clippers out and cut my hair. And where it all comes from, how it's related to Putin, how it's related to the invasion of Ukraine, which Alexander Dugin called for back in 1997 in his book, Foundations of Geopolitics. This is the guy, Igor Berkut. I break down how the symbols relate to the letter Shin and how that relates to Shekinah, and how it adds up to 358, as in Nachash, the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and also as in Mashiach. So you might want to watch that video. That's a pretty good one, actually. And then I also did this video on the rape of Ukraine and rise of heavenly Jerusalem. A lot more information in that as well. So I wanted to make people aware of one of the reasons why they want to get this done. They want all of this to happen at this time and to work together synergistically to feed one project feeds another as Trump starts to break ground in the rubble of Gaza, finishes the genocide of the Palestinians, gets them all out. These are part of the plans in the works and how they work together, killing off the males in Ukraine so that the females can be enslaved and shipped out throughout the world, and a lot of them shipped to Gaza to serve as sex slaves in the brothels that the Israelis are going to set up throughout Gaza and throughout Israel. This is how these people think. This is how these people behave historically. They have all of the religious justification for doing all this. It is not only justification, it is mitzvot, commandments that they have to do this. They enjoy doing this. They rape Palestinian men in their prisons. They fight for the right to do that. Think of the horrors that these women undergo. Think of the horrors that they have put the Ukrainian people through and continue to do. Biden and NATO said that they did not want Ukraine to win the war. So this was obviously a meat grinding project. They gave a trickle of substandard weapons and munitions throughout the war to ensure that Ukraine could not achieve victory. And they set it up so that Donald Trump would get elected. They kept Biden in as long as they could to ensure the Democrats would lose. And then they substituted Kamala Harris, the biggest loser in the Democratic Party, for Biden when they could no longer get away with the sham of running Biden. Also to ensure that Trump would get in. They always flip things one way and then the other to ratchet it up and to gain more and more progress on their overall agenda. And now their agenda is not only to sabotage Ukraine's victory, but to ensure Russia's victory. And that treacherous, traitorous snake, who I said 10 years ago was going to try to destroy NATO, was working together with Putin, was working together with Netanyahu and the Adelsons. I forecast all of this 10 years ago. I wrote a book about it, Putin's Reign of Terror, the Permanent Revolution in Our Times. And I've been exposing all this all along. I knew exactly what's coming, and I'm telling you what's coming next. Is they want to take these poor, innocent, wonderful, beautiful Ukrainian women and utilize them as meat, as white slaves, as sex slaves. And they're going to traffic them around the world. They're going to fill them up with diseases, traumatize them, beat them repeatedly, gang rape them. And then they're going to kill them, just as they're going to kill all of us. So that's another reason why we have to get busy. We need a literal army to be able to oppose the actions of the superpowers to exterminate all of us. If we are going to survive, we need the next generation of weapons. In order to develop that, we need to take advantage of the brain drain, just as Trump and Elon Musk fire all these government people with this knowledge and these skills. These people are going to be resentful. We can recruit them and we can tap them to be the leaders of our weapons development programs if we set up a new country. And we can develop weapons of total destruction, which will have absolute deterrence against any attack against us. We have to do that immediately. If you don't want to see your wives, your daughters, or your girlfriends utilized as slaves, if you don't want to be enslaved and trafficked around the world as these people have been doing for thousands of years, if you're an African and you don't want Putin and Xi Jinping to enslave you and beat you and force you into labor that you don't want to do to ultimately exterminate you, if you're tired of Europeans doing the same and you want the right of self-determination and self-sovereignty, you should do likewise. You should set up your own independent governments and stop helping these people instead of our best people providing these people with weapons and knowledge and science and technology. We need these people to join with us in a new community, so that will have the effect of brain drain, of inhibiting all the others from developing their weapons, and will give us the best state-of-the-art new weapons, because we will already have everything that has existed and we can build upon that with a fresh look. In order for that to happen, We need people to step up. We need investors. We need smart people. We need to build a new country, and we need to be able to defend it. And if we're able to defend it, perhaps we can defend the whole rest of the world from all the horrors that they have planned for us. And among those horrors are this sex slave out of Ukraine, out of Europe to the rest of the world that the Jews have been running for thousands of years. This is not conjecture. This is proven fact. Again, I want to thank all the people who have contributed to make this possible. Really, thank you very, very much. It's tremendously helpful. I couldn't get by without it. If you would like to contribute, you can do so at cjbbooks.com. You can also find my books there, and at the bottom of the page, you can find my social media links where you can find my other videos. You can subscribe to my channels and get more of this unique content. I'm the only one in the world who has these insights. You're not going to find it anywhere else until people start ripping it off from me and not giving me credit. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you also for sharing my work and directing people to it. I'll see all you wonderful people next time. Goodbye for now.